Recording in progress.
Good morning, America. Good afternoon, Eretz Yisrael. Welcome to all those joining us for the Shiur in the Sefer Lohidia L'Doros regarding parenting, especially based on all of Rabbeinu Zal's teachings. We'll continue from where we left off. We're in Likutei Halachos now, and he brings excerpts from Likutei Halachos that are related to the topic of having children and educating children. The first piece we'll do now comes from Likutei Halachos Yoredeya, Hilchas Kibud Avayim Halacha Beis, which is based on chapter 71 in the second half of Likutei Moran. In that chapter, Rabbeinu Zal speaks about the fact that Hashem created the world with all kinds of things in it, every level of creation, rocks, and there are rocks that are very expensive. There's precious stones that can cost hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, precious stones. And then there's plants, all kinds of flowers, perfumes. There are perfumes that are made from plants that again cost thousands of dollars. A little drop of this perfume could be very expensive. And then there's animals, and then there's human beings, the highest level of creation. And Rabbeinu Zal there and in other places shows that out of everything in creation, the ones that are in the best position to show respect to Hashem is us human beings, because we are the only ones that have free choice. Nothing else in creation has free choice. They're serving Hashem. They don't have any alternative. We have an alternative. And when a human being chooses to serve Hashem, that's Iker Kevoidoi, that's the main kavod of Hashem. And the Sifrei Kabbalah use the term Isarusa de Lesata, that when we do something down here on earth, when there's a hisoirus, there's an awakening from below here on earth, it generates a corresponding awakening in heaven, in Shamayim. And because we are the ones who are in the greatest position to show respect to Hashem, that's why one of the most important, the first and one of the most important mitzvahs in the Torah is to bring children into the world. Because each and every single new child that comes to the world is another machine, in a sense, a factory of mitzvahs, if the child is being educated properly. And this is why the Sifrei Kabbalah tell us, when we speak about Adam Arishon, the first person who was created by Hashem, and Adam Arishon originally was destined to live forever. There didn't have to be any concept of death. Adam Arishon, who was created, he wasn't born, he was created, handcrafted by Hashem himself, was on such a high level that he was teaching the angels, the malachim, and an incredible high level. And had he not made the mistakes that he made, everything would have come to a tikkun very quickly. And one of the most important mistakes that he made, the Sifrei Kabbalah explained, is the fact that he was created on Friday, and Chava was also created on Friday before Shabbos. Had they waited to join together to bring children into the world till Shabbos, had they waited till Shabbos, everything would have been different. The fact that they didn't, that was a major factor in causing all the problems that came afterwards. And therefore, the Torah stresses to us that regarding marriage, when a Jew gets married in this world, a person has to be extremely careful to see to it that the union between husband and wife should be on a high level of Kedusha, a high level of holiness, because everything depends on that. Everything depends on human beings. Everything depends on Jewish children that are being born. Because again, the Mishnah says at the end of Pirkei Avos, the entire world was created for Hashem's kavod. And the ones who are in a position to give the greatest kavod to Hashem are human beings, us, the Jewish people. And especially a child that's born through Isarusa de Lesata. Remember, Adam Arishon was made by Hashem Kaviochel. That's not called Isarusa de Lesata. That's an awakening from above. That's divine. That's heavenly. Once human beings get married in this world, and they bring about the birth of a child, that's a form of Isarusa L'Sata. That's something that can generate tremendous kavod to Hashem. And this explains also why one of the 10 commandments is to have respect for parents. Because the Arizal explains that on a spiritual level, parents physically bring a child into the world, and a human child is different than everything else. An animal, when it's born, we know that an animal is a much lower level intelligence than a human being. And yet, an animal, when it's born, doesn't need the mother to take care of it in a sense. It can start, or to teach it how to walk. You see a baby care for a baby goat or something is born. Seconds or minutes after it's born, it gets up on its feet and it can start walking and moving around. A human being, a human child, can't walk, can't move, needs to nurse from the mother. They need to have everything done for them from the beginning in order for them to get started. That's on a physical level. On a spiritual level, the Arizal reveals the fact that the father and mother provide levushin, spiritual garments for the child, and those all mitzvahs, any mitzvahs that child is going to perform, are dependent on, are affected by those levushin that the parents provide, those spiritual garments that the parents provide. Which means that any respect that child is going to give to Hashem is being fed, is being powered by those levushin that he received from the parents. And that's why, which means any kavod that this child is going to give to Hashem is based on that. And that's why there's a mitzvah for a child to be mechabed the parents. Because again, the purpose of the world is kvod Hashem. Every Jew that comes into the world, that does the right thing, that does a mitzvah, that does a good deed, is being mechabed Hashem. In order to be able to do that, a child has to receive from its parents this levush, this garment. And a garment is kavod. We know the Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan korele lamane mechabduse. Rabbi Yochanan called his clothing his respectability, his kavod. So again, the kavod is coming from the parent. The kavod, the levush, is coming from the parents. Therefore, the child has a mitzvah to be mechabed the parents, to return that kavod. Any questions? The next item presented is based on Likutei Halachos Yoredeya, Hilchos Melamdim, Halacha Daled, which is based on chapter 34 in Likutei Moharan. That chapter, in certain ways, is one of the most basic foundations of Yiddishkeit and Breslov. That's where Rabbeinu Zal presents the idea that in order for a person to accomplish their mission in this world, it requires 3 nekudos. It requires a connection to a tzaddik. It requires a connection to friends, colleagues, and it requires a connection to oneself. A person to connect to themselves, to their own neshama, their own nefesh. And Rabbeinu Zal speaks about this at length there. Very deep, incredible, deep, interesting, important concepts. Rab Nasan Zal in Likutei Halachos says that one of the ways that a person could accomplish these 3 things, these 3 buttons, is when a person gets married and has children and then has grandchildren. The pasuk says in the Torah, "V'hoidatom levonecha v'levnei vonecha." The Torah makes it perfectly clear that it's a mitzvah for a person to study Torah and do mitzvahs, and to enlighten their children. A parent is required to spend time with the children, teaching them emun in Hashem, teaching them Torah, teaching them mitzvahs, and then taking it to another level to grandchildren. And Rav Nasan Zal says this is one of the ways that a person is accomplishing those 3 nekudos that Rabbeinu Zal speaks about on Likutei Moharan. How? A person themselves, when they start learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, that person is receiving from themselves, in a sense. Rabbeinu Zal there quotes the pasuk, Pi yedaber chachmos, Vehegois libi tevunos, that when a person speaks words of Kedusha, words of Torah, words of Tefillah, their heart listens and hears and receives, and the person is receiving from himself. That's this Nekuda Mineu Bey. When a person is zeicha to bring a child into the world and to teach that child, to learn with that child, now there's two. And the Torah makes it perfectly clear that two is better than one. The Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, Al tehei rosha b'fnei atzmacha, that when a person is alone, a person practicing Yiddishkeit alone, not getting married, not learning with somebody, not having contact with another person, they're very vulnerable, chas v'shalom, much more easily vulnerable to the Yetzer Hara, to chas v'shalom falling into that category of Russia. So the pasuk says, Toivim tashnayim eno echad, that two are better than one, because everyone has ups and downs, and the pasuk says, she'im yipoilu ho'echad yochem es chaveroi. People are always having downs and ups, and if one falls, the other one can pick them up. Because not always are people in the same place. One day a person is up, the other one is down, the next day it's reversal. When there's two people interacting together in Yiddishkeit, one can support the other one when there's a yerida. So now we have that second nekuda. Now we have that nekudas chaver, two colleagues, and each one, even though it's a father and son, it's a concept of nekudas chaver. And it's because we know that children are also sometimes referred to as brothers. The pasuk says, "Vayakov Avinu, vayomer Yaakov le'echov liktu avonim." He said to his brothers, "Gather stones for a matzeva." And Rashi HaKodesh says there, le'echov lebonov. It refers to his children, shehoyu achim, that they were brothers. And they approached him. He considered them in a sense like brothers. So when a person is teaching their son, now we have already the nekudas chaver coming into action. And now, when he takes it to the next level, he takes it as a grandchild, and that grandchild is also being taught Torah, also being taught Yiddishkeit. Now the Torah promises hachut hameshulash lo b'mheira yinotek, that a triple-stranded rope is very difficult to break, to tear, because then he's going to learn with his son and with his grandson, and as a result of that, he gets bumped up to a whole new level. He gets bumped up to the level of the nekuda of the tzaddik, in a sense. He's now on another. He's a zokein. A grandparent is called a zokein. Zokein is a bechin of zekon chachma. Then he becomes the concept of the Rav, because he's learning with two. He's learning with his son and he's learning with his grandson. And the son is learning with his son. And that combination is hitting all 3 points that a person needs to have a solid foundation in their Yiddishkeit. And Rav Nasan Zal says we see this in the beginning. We see this by our original forefathers, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. First, there was only Avram Avinu. And where did Avram Avinu receive? Where did he received Minei Ubei? Avram Avinu had his spoidedus. He spoke to Hashem, and he searched for Hashem, and through that he was zeicha to make a certain connection. However, because he was the only one at the time, there wasn't a nekudas chaver, there wasn't. What came from him wasn't a shleimus. He had a Yitzchak, he had a Yishmael also. And once he gave birth to Yitzchak Avinu, now there were two. Now there were already two. It was a toivim ashnayim eno echad. And when Yitzchak Avinu gave birth to Yaakov Avinu, that's when there became a shleimus. That's the shleimus, and we see it in the results. All of his children were all winners, all going on the derech hayosher. And at that point, Avram Avinu became the Rav, in a sense, like we said, and Yitzchak Avinu represents the nekudas chaver, and Yaakov Avinu now represents that nekuda minei ubei. And this is why the Gemara makes a statement, Kol mi shehu talmid chacham, u'bnoi talmid chacham, u'ben bnoi talmid chacham, shuv ein ha-Torah poisekes mizaroi. That when a person learns Torah, and his son is learning Torah, and again, especially if he's sharing Torah with his son, and then it's taken to the next level, learning with a grandson, that's a guarantee that the Torah will remain throughout their lineage. As the pasuk says, Lo yamuvshu mipicha, mipi zaracha, umpi zera zaracha, because now you have all three nekudas functioning fully, completely. Now in that chapter in Likutei Moharan, Rabbeinu Zal stresses that where is this nekuda found? Where is the origin of this, of the light that a person receives from Hashem, and that a person has to pass on to the child, to the student, etc.? It's in the sphere of Yesoid, because the Sifrei Kabbalah explained that when Hashem first created the world and there was a shattering of the vessels, the light of Chesed dropped down to Yesoid. That's where it's found. And Rav Nasan Zal says this is what explains why there's much more of a mitzvah for a person to be learning with their son, with their grandson, than with other people. Because the fact that this person came from me, I gave birth to this person came from my Yesoid, from my Bris Kodesh, implies a much more serious connection. On one hand, all Jews are connected. Kol Yisrael Chaverim, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zelazeh. But the fact that Rabbeinu Zal shows there in Likutei Moharan very clearly that this Nekuda is Shoira on the Bris Kodesh, therefore, Avram Avinu, the first father of the Yidden, the Torah makes an incredible point of showing how Avram Avinu was Zoche to a Bris at the age of 99 years old. He had a Bris Milah. And we know that Avram Avinu knew about Torah. He knew about the mitzvahs even before that. Many Meforshim ask, why didn't he do it before? If he knew about it, what did he wait for? The Gemara says, Godel hametzuva v'yoiseh. There's a whole question of which mitzvah is considered better. A mitzvah that a person does on their own without being told to do it, or if a person's told to do it. There's a whole discussion in the Gemara, and the maskana is that if you're told to do it and you do it, it's bigger. A person would say, what do you mean? It would seem so much better the person did it on their own. The answer is when a person is told to do a mitzvah, then there's a Yetzirah, there's a challenge of the opposition that tries to block. When a person's mitzvah, he has a Yetzirah that tries to block him from doing it. And if he succeeds in performing the mitzvah, it's a much higher level, number one. Number two, other mitzvahs, a person will say, okay, I did it on my own, and then afterwards I did it after I was mitzvah. Bris Milah is one of the unique mitzvahs that a person only gets to do once in their life. And therefore, Avram Avinu waited till Hashem told him, and he waited to the age of 99. Vusep is 99. What does 99 have anything to do with it? Any number mentioned in the Torah has chashivos. The number tzadik tes, the way we pronounce it, tzadik tes, tzadi tes, tzadik daled yud, tes yud, is bigematria bris, And there's a special connection that the first Jew, the first one to have a bris milah, was Avram Avinu at the age of 99. And again, he passed on this nekuda to his son Yitzchak, who passed it on to Yaakov Avinu. And once you have three, that's shleimus. That's why Yaakov Avinu is called Bechir Shabavois. That's why he's the one who produced a mito shleima, it's called, that his bed was complete. Why shleima? Shleima is because when all three nekudas are being met, the nekuda of the tzaddik, the nekuda of the chaver, and the nekuda satzmai, that's the real shleimus. Question what page we're on in the Sefer. We just completed page 124, 125. Any questions, please? The next item mentioned here comes from Likutei Halachos, Even Ezer, Hilchas Pirya Verivia, Ve'ishus, Halacha Hey, based on Torah Ches in Likutei Moran Tanina, which is the final shir that Rabbeinu Zal gave in his lifetime, the last Rosh Hashanah, a few weeks before he was passed away. And we know that one of the most important, one of the highlights in that chapter in Likutei Moran, that's where Rabbeinu Zal really expressed the incredible significance of what happens when an additional person comes and joins a group of people that are gathered to do a mitzvah, a gathering of tefillah, a gathering of Torah. We know, everybody knows that according to halacha, according to the Torah, you need 10. You need 10 to be able to say Kaddish, to be able to say Baruch Hu, to be able to have Kriyas HaTorah. You could have 9 of the greatest tzaddikim, the Avos Sekdoshim, the Shivaroyim, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. They're stuck. They can't say Kaddish, they can't say Kedusha, they can't do anything. One additional person comes in for a few minutes, can't stay. Suddenly all the halachas change. They can say Kaddish, they can say Baruch Hu, they can take out the Sefer Torah, everything. It's such a big difference, the answer is yes. The Gemara and the Zohar Kodesh say, Akol be'asor shchinta sharia, that the number 10 has a certain magic to it, that it attracts the Shechina. The Tikkunei Zohar shows why. Because if you take the numbers from 1 to 10, 1 times 1 plus 2 times 2 plus 3 times 3 to 10 times 10, it's Bigematria Shechina, the word Shechina. That number 10, again, and each one coming in, adding, is something that attracts and ensures the presence of the Shechina. So that's something that people are aware of. But people aren't aware to a certain degree. The Gemara says, Baroivam Hadras Melech, that the more people getting together to do a mitzvah, it's a greater respect to Hashem. But in terms of how much of a difference is it really? If you have 35 people and one other guy comes in, does it change the world? Rabbeinu Zal shows there, yes, it definitely changes the world. It multiplies the amount of light that was generated by the 35 people. When 36 comes, it could become millions more units of light because of that one additional person that came and joined. And this is why Rab Nasan Zal says that the incredible mitzvah of bringing a child into the world, a child that's going to fulfill the Torah and mitzvahs, because even though not everybody is zocha that their children should be tzaddikim and mamish, super religious, so long as they are still in the category of a Jew, and that the parent teaches them from when they're young to learn Torah, to learn Chumash, to learn Aleph Beis, and to go to shul, and to join the kibbutz, to join the gathering of Jews in shul or learning Torah, or especially Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, which is the main time of kibbutz gathering together, and to say Shema Yisrael, that alone generates incredible pleasure to Hashem, the fact that we added an additional person to the kibbutz. And Rabbi Nasan Zal writes, and you never know, a person has a child, the child is not necessarily the biggest Talmid Chacham, the most religious, but you don't know who's going to come from that child. The Gemara gives a warning, Hizaru b'bnei ha'oretz, be careful regarding the children who come from parents who are not necessarily Rabbonim, shemehem teitzei Torah. We've seen many cases like this, of parents who aren't necessarily very learned, and they're zocheh to have a child who becomes a Talmid Chacham, a rabbi, a Rosh Yeshiva. Rabbi Nasan gives the example, if we think about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai or Rabbi Akiva, if we look back to their parents and grandparents, not everyone along that with the way there was all great tzaddikim. Usually, there could have been regular, ordinary people along the way, and from those ordinary people, it ended up evolving, resulting that there came forth a Rabbi Akiva, a giant, an incredible giant. And this is why the emphasis that the most important thing that a parent can give a child is a chinuch, a Jewish chinuch, which means to teach them Torah, to teach them mitzvahs. As the pasuk says, "V'shinantam levonecha," you will teach your children. "V'limadetem oisam es benechem," this incredible importance of family, making sure that I contribute whatever I can to my family's chinuch. "V'hoidatem levonecha v'levnei fanecha." And here Rab Nasan Zal adds an important point. During his time, 200 years ago, there was already this terrible, terrible situation that there were Jewish people who were trying to railroad Jewish kids off the derech, to get them off the derech of authentic Judaism. Authentic Judaism meaning learning Torah Shebechsav and then learning Torah Shebal Peh, realizing that a person doesn't know anything from the written Torah without Gemara. The mitzvah of tefillin, for example, in the Chumash, it's one line or two lines. It doesn't say anything about leather, it doesn't say black, it doesn't say 4 parshias. All of that comes from the Gemara. So that, and Rabbeinu Zal says, what defines us as Jews is the Torah Shebal Peh. The non-Jews, they have the Bible. They also supposedly have a connection to the Torah Shebechsav. But without the Torah Shebal Peh, it doesn't compare in any way whatsoever. So when we're talking about chinuch of kids, during Rab Nasan Zal's time already, the reform movement had started, reform and conservative, Rahman al-Islam, in Europe at the time. It started in Germany, and it was spreading to Eastern Europe also. These people who are going to the government, going to the non-Jewish government, and trying to convince them to force the Jewish schools to teach secular studies. Number one, their real objective was to close down the religious schools and replace them with schools where the kids would be able to assimilate more easily into the culture of the country, that kind of thing. But they said, no, the Torah is okay. The Chumash Navi is okay. Gemara was the thing that they were looking, Gemara and Halacha was the thing that they were allergic to, because that's what really defines authentic Judaism. And they tried to replace that by having the kids study languages, French, Spanish, Russian, the secular languages, and culture, the culture of the Goyim, world history, the sciences. Rav Nasan Zal says, and they would say that the Gemara is not needed, that the Gemara is antiquated, it doesn't really have things that apply today. Rav Nasan says, really, that doesn't apply. But to teach my kids how many tails, that there's a certain reptile in Japan, and to know whether it has 4 tails or 5 tails, that's important, that a kid has to know in education. I remember growing up in New York and going to a yeshiva, an authentic yeshiva, a real good religious yeshiva. But because they had to meet certain basic requirements of the government, the local government, in order to be considered a school, in order to have certain basic rights, so we had to learn secular studies. And I remember in one of the years in high school, I think it was in 9th grade or 10th grade, we had to learn there was world history, and there was also geography, learning about different countries in the world. And I remember we'd come into a class and we had to write. The teacher just read from his notes and we had to write it over, learning about Japan, about things, how many rivers there are in Japan and how many this and how many that. And again, write pages and pages and pages and study it and try to memorize it and get tested on it, and then forget it. Who remembers how many rivers there were and how many, and this mountain and that mountain and all. Person would say that's what's going to make a child into a better human being. That's what's going to give a child the ability to navigate in the world, to navigate the challenges of the world, or the study of Gemara, which is divine wisdom, where the Torah teaches a path. It's called the path of life. All the incredible praises that are written about the Torah. So Rav Nasan Zal emphasizes here, that in terms of chinuch, being aware that there's chinuch, there's education, and there's education. And even within Jewish education, there's a lot of different focus, where the focus is put. And the rabbis during Rab Nosson Zal's time and in previous generations, they really knew that the most important thing for a Jewish child to learn is Gemara and Poskim, Torah Shabbal Peh and Poskim. That's the most. In order to get to Gemara, you have to learn Chumash, you have to learn Aleph Beis, you have to learn Chumash, some of the Navi. But these people came along, and in order to redirect, in order to misdirect Jewish children, in order to take them away from Gemara and Halacha, they put focus on Chumash and Navi, and Dikduk, grammar, Hebrew grammar, and to study all the grammatical things throughout the Chumash and the Navi. That was the emphasis, in order to de-emphasize the Gemara and Halacha, which is what really defines Judaism, which is what really defines authentic Judaism. Rav Nosson Zal goes on to say, there's a place where Rabbeinu Zal speaks about Hashem's light, the light that comes down from heaven, that it originates in a level called thousands. And then, in order for us to be able to relate to it, it has to be narrowed, it has to be brought down to a level of hundreds that we can relate to more easily, that kind of thing. When we speak about the Midos of Hashem, the Keser, the crown of Hashem, which is referred to as the highest level, is referred to as Pele. Pele means wondrous. And Pele is also the letters Aleph. The Sifrei Kabbalah tell us that the level of light, when we're talking about the Keser, that's thousands. When we bring it down to a level that and over there the Torah warns that that's way above us. We can't understand that level. The pasuk says, "B'mufla mimcha al tidrosh, u'b'mechusa mimcha al tachkor." In that which is wondrous to you, you're not allowed to try to delve into that, because right now, the level we're on, we can't understand that. When Mashiach will come, we'll be able to. But what we need to have that light of thousands brought down to the hundreds. There we can start relating to it. And Rav Nosson Zal mentions the pasuk, Hakoton Yihiyeh Le'elef, that the Torah promises that if Jews will live properly, and they'll get married, and they'll have children, and those children will have children, this small nation, Hakoton, this small nation, Yihiyeh Le'elef, will be able to rise up, they'll be able to grow, they'll be able to learn Torah, and they'll be able eventually to be zocheh to that elef, to that thousand, to that highest level of light of Hashem. And here Rav Nosson Zal shows us that we find by Yaakov Avinu, we said that Yaakov Avinu is the Bechir Sheba'avois, he's the one who reached the Shleimus in a sense. When Yaakov Avinu was about to pass away, he thought that because all of his children are tzaddikim, they're all good, that's it, game over, we could bring Mashiach. He wanted to reveal the coming of Mashiach. And he said to his children, Hey Asfu, gather around, Va'agid olchem, I'm going to tell you exactly all about Mashiach's coming. And then he saw that the Shekhinah left him, and he realized that something's missing. Afterwards he said, He koptzu v'shimu b'nei Yaakov. And Rav Nosson Zal explains the difference between an asifa and a kibbutz. Asifa is people that are close to each other, people that are like-minded people. The pasuk says, Esfoli shivim ish miziknei Yisrael. When Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to organize a group of rabbis, a group of leaders who would guide Klal Yisrael, he used the term asifa. The word kibbutz means reaching out, people who are far. Im yihiyeh nidochacha b'ktzei hashamayim. The pasuk says, if there'll be people who will be as far away as the other end of the heavens, misham yikabetz chashma, Hashem will gather you in from there. So the fact that Yaakov Avinu changed his tune, he started off with asifa and he switched to kibbutz, was a message to us to know that in order to bring about the Geula will not be accomplished by just a group of Rabbonim or a group of very frum people living in their neighborhood and doing the mitzvah. That's not enough. That's not going to do it. It's going to require kibbutz. It's going to require people who are far, people who didn't grow up religious necessarily, people who are far from it, and them coming and joining. That's what's going to finish the job. That's what's going to complete the job in order to bring about the Geula. And this again emphasizes a person has children. Some children are Talmidei Chachamim, some children are less Talmidei Chachamim. We need each one. That the picture is not complete. The term tzibur, we talk about tefillah b'tzibur. Tzibur means a holy gathering. The word tzibur, the tzaddik stands for tzadikim, the Bey stands for Beinonim, the Vav Reish stands for Urishoim. That's considered a shleimus. That's a shleimus. The Gemara warns. The Gemara says any tefillah that doesn't include the Rishoim is not complete. And that's why on the holiest day of the year, Yom Kippur, where the Gemara says that 364 days a year, the Satan has power. There's one day that he's powerless, Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, we begin the tefillah. On the night of Yom Kippur, before Kol Nidre, we say we're inviting all the avaryonim. We're inviting the people that are far away, that are most distant, to come and join us, to show that we recognize that we need them. Without them, the picture is not complete. Without them, the Yom Kippur is not complete. And without them, the Geula can't happen. Rabbi Nasan Zal says, the Zohar Kodesh Ne'arizal write that this is one of the main reasons why it's taking so long. What do you mean? We had the big tzaddikim, we had the Rishonim, we had the Achronim, we had the Baal Shem Tov. Why couldn't they do it? The answer is they could have done it. However, Hashem wants everyone to be included. Hashem wants people who are not tzaddikim. Hashem wants them also to be part of the success, part of the picture. And therefore, we're waiting for them to come and join, or we're doing what we can, we're trying to do what we can to make it possible for them to join, to be able to welcome them, to be able to attract them to come to shul, to come to learn Torah. This is also why in that final statement, Yaakov Avinu says, Hikovtzu v'shimu b'nei Yaakov v'shimu el Yisrael avichem. He uses both of his names. Why changing names in the middle? The answer is that Yaakov is a term that represents the people who are on a low level. Ekev is the heel of the foot. Yisrael has the word roish in it, li roish. Yaakov Avinu was making it perfectly clear that he realized that in order for the Geula to happen, it's going to require including the Bnei Yaakov, the people who are on a low madrega, the people who are far, to include them and elevate them to be able to become Yisrael. The title Yisrael was given when Yaakov Avinu did battle against the angel and he defeated the angel. That's when he earned this title Yisrael. Question. In current times, we're dealing with an epidemic of learning disabilities, not only in children, but in parents and grandparents. Words of perspective and encouragement. The answer is that unfortunately some of these learning disabilities have to do with from the time that a child is born and growing up. We're lacking some of this. We're lacking interaction between parents and children. In today's times, parents are so busy, in quotes, busy with work obligations, with all kinds of responsibilities. And even when they come home, and you would say they have an opportunity to interact with children, there's the phone and there's other diversions, and we miss out on certain simple opportunities for healthy interaction between parents and children. And the whole concept of how things have changed dramatically in our generation, that people don't talk to each other anymore. There's texting and email messaging, less and less speech, where the definition of a human being is medaber. What defines us as human beings versus animals is the koyach hadibor, the whole union of speech. We speak about vishinantam levonech, it means speaking to your children. And this interaction, this verbal interaction, which if it's missing, it makes a big difference. That's a factor, and also all the different distractions that the Satan has put into the world today. On one hand, on the side of Kedusha, we have Torah available more today than ever before. The Torah 100 years ago 90% of Klal Yisrael or more was locked out from Torah Shebal Peh, from Gemara. They don't know Aramaic, they don't know Hebrew, they can't learn Gemara. Suddenly we have English, French, Spanish, the Gemara being translated into all languages and being made available. And new Sfarim coming out, simplifying the Gemara, the Halacha, all kinds of things. We have that on one end, and on the opposite end, the challenges. The Yetzer Hara has so many diverse tools to weaken people, to weaken their ability to think, to weaken their ability to talk, to learn, all of these issues, these kind of things. When we talk about learning disabilities, some of it needs to be diagnosed correctly. Sometimes it's a matter, we spoke about this previously, of that, for example, in a classroom where students are put together, you have different students, some who understand things quickly, some who are on the level to understand what the teacher's teaching, and some that don't, some that aren't on that same level. And if the teacher doesn't realize that, and if the teacher isn't capable, the teacher's just talking one language, and the top 10 or 20% of the class understands it, and the rest don't. They don't get it. And if they're ignored and left out, very often that results in kids who never learn how to read properly, never learn how to learn properly, etc., all kinds of weaknesses, versus this realization of knowing that people are not cookie cutter, people are all different, and need to be able to address the needs of each and every different child to a degree, to whatever degree it's possible. To know that those who are getting the 90s on the tests or the hundreds, that's one category. There are some that are getting 70s on the tests who are working harder. For them to get the 70 takes more effort than the other one who got the 90, which shows that they didn't try so hard, because they're on a higher level. After, if they tried, they would have gotten 100, no question at all. And to be able to give chizuk, to be able to give encouragement to those who are getting the 70s, 80s, which picks them up, which gets them interested more and gets them to be able to advance. And if these things are not being done properly, if we don't know who to give chizuk to and who to give hisoirus to, who to tell you could do better, to tell the one you could do better, that's to be told to the one who's on a high level, if we know that they really can do better. And to the ones, the weaker ones, if we see that they're putting in a sincere effort, to be able to give them the encouragement or the motivation, or to be able to know what to teach in order to turn them on. I gave the example, I've told this in the past, but it's worth repeating. My Rebbe, Rav Rosenfeld, Zichron Livracha, this is going back maybe 60 years ago, 50, 60 years ago, was invited at one point to become a Rebbe, a teacher in a yeshiva of a class of students who were 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, who got rid of teachers. Usually a teacher didn't last between a week and 3 weeks. They had to get a new teacher because the kids made it so difficult, so unpleasant for the teacher. And they invited him to come to teach this class. He was in his 20s at the time, I think, late 20s. And he came in and he saw the welcome that they gave him. That the teacher's desk was in the front, and they moved all of the students' desks to the back of the room, like, to show that they don't want to be close. He has to use a microphone to talk to them, you know. And he saw the situation, and he saw the lack of respect, and he knew that this has to be dealt with properly. So instead of teaching what the curriculum was at that point, he said, I have an interesting story to share. And he started telling them stories from the Medrash, other places, and suddenly those chairs started moving up. They started moving those chairs up, and they became so enthralled with the things he taught them that it wasn't enough to be with him during the class, during school time. They found out where he lives, and on Shabbos they would walk a half hour, 45 minutes from where they live to be able to spend some time with him on Shabbos. It's a matter of sometimes being able to understand. The Torah defines a leader, a Jewish leader, when Moshe Rabbeinu is about to leave the world and he says, I need a replacement, Hashem says there's one qualification, Ish asher ruach boi, someone who understands the differences between each one of the people and is able to relate to each and every different person. That's one of the critical pieces in addressing this issue, in being able to motivate people to want to learn. There are so many people who, again, you would tell them 30 years ago, 40 years ago to learn Gemara, they would try to look at it, and impossible, a different planet. And then the Gemara was translated into English, made it accessible, and then you have rabbis who said, but this isn't real learning, this is a joke. And there were rabbis that said, you're not allowed to have those Gemaras in your house, or students aren't allowed to use this, etc., not realizing necessarily that they're leaving out 90% of Klal Yisrael from the limit of Torah Shebal Peh. That if a person has 7-8 hours a day to devote to learning, then we could tell that person, don't use any crutches at all, don't use anything to assist you, go right in there and break your head to figure it out, that kind of thing. But most people today who aren't in that kind of position, if we don't give them certain basic tools that they need to help them, they're lost. And there are people today, working people, who have completed Shas 2-3 times, where people who are devoting full time to learning haven't necessarily accomplished that. That's on one end. And then on the other end, giving a child a calculator, where a child never learns how to add or subtract, the most basic things that a kid needs to get along, to go into a store and buy something and know if they're being given the right price or not, certain basic things. Those are certain mistakes that we make, where we think we're making life easier for people, and we're not letting them develop certain basic skills that they need to be able to be a mensch, to be able to grow. Any other questions? A question was raised before about the 3 nekudos. We said that the 3 nekudos that Rabbeinu Zal speaks about on the Likutei Moharan, 3 basic categories that represent the whole spectrum of Yiddishkeit. The first one is the tzaddik, the concept of realizing that in Klal Yisrael, in order for us to function, in order for us to have a proper connection to Hashem, it requires a connection to a tzaddik. This was established from the time of Adam HaRishon. Adam HaRishon, he was the tzaddik of his time. Then we had Noach, then we had Avram Avinu in every generation, and the Torah shows us the significance, the importance of being close to the tzaddik. During Noach's time, a flood, Hashem wiped out the whole world except for the tzaddik and those who were attached to him. During the time of Avram Avinu, we find also those who came close to Avram Avinu had the best chance of coming close to Hashem. If a person tried to do it without Avram Avinu, just about impossible. When it came to Moshe Rabbeinu, when Hashem spoke to the Jews directly, we see that they couldn't handle the light. Their neshamas left them, and they pleaded with Moshe Rabbeinu, you speak to us, so that we'll be able to receive Hashem's light in a way that we can process it, we can use it in a good, healthy way. So this nekuda of the tzaddik is a critical piece of Yiddishkeit, the coming close to the tzaddik, connecting to a tzaddik. Then there's the importance of interacting with colleagues or parents and children. This concept of not being alone, having a chaver, a good friend. Toivim hashnayim and echad. The Torah says 2 is usually better than 1. Obviously, if it's the right kind of friend. We're not talking about the wrong kind of friend, that could turn a person away. The Torah speaks about that. Distance yourself from a bad neighbor, chas v'shalom. And then there are definitely certain times when the tzaddik isn't available and a friend isn't available. And then Judaism doesn't shut down. That doesn't mean that there's no Yiddishkeit. When there's nobody, there's no tzaddik to listen to, or there's no chavrusa to learn with, then a person could be learning by themselves. Or there's a certain aspect of tefillah. We know tefillah b'tzibur. The Gemara speaks so much about the importance of davening with a minyan. Shachris mincha ma'ariv, musaf, nila, with a minyan. But then the Torah also tells us, and Rabbeinu Zal puts emphasis on this, the union of hispoidus, that in addition to the tefillos b'tzibur, there's a certain tefillah, a certain type of tefillah, which gives a person a connection to Hashem that in many ways is higher than all of the tefillah b'tzibur, all the tefillahs. When a person has personal conversation with Hashem in your own words. We mentioned that the holiest day of the year is Yom Kippur. The holiest person is the Kohen Gadol. The holiest place on earth is the Kodesh HaKadoshim in the Beis HaMikdash, the Holy of Holies. The Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur was the only person, the only day that he was allowed to enter into the Kodesh HaKadoshim to bring about a kapara for the entire Klal Yisrael. We say in the tefillah, we say, you want to know what the Kohen Gadol looked like coming out of there? Ki yoshev seiser lechalois pnei melech. Like a person sitting in a hidden place, pleading with the king, pleading with Hashem, Mare Kohen. That's what the Kohen Gadol looked like coming out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So again, there is a time and a place for a person to serve Hashem alone, by themselves. But that's on condition that they also have the right kind of friends, that David HaMelech says until him, Chover ani lechol asher yireucha, that wherever there were Yirei Hashem, wherever there were people who were really religious, I made sure lehit chaber, to be part of it, to realize even though I'm David HaMelech, even though I'm the fourth leg of the throne of Hashem, even though I'm one of the Shivaroim, I can't do it alone. I need friends. I need a good friend. I need that chibur. And then the connection to the tzaddik, the chibur to the tzaddik, that all three pieces here are critical. Any questions?
Good afternoon, good morning. Just a quick question. Nasan mentioned in previous shiurim that essentially it's tikkun. Children are tikkun for your fixing. So my question is, if some of my kids don't exactly act certain ways, should I break down and cry in the next Shemona Esrei, or is it because my wife was not exactly acting the same way? I mean, my wife asked me this in the 11:30 shiur that you mention all the time, that's so organized when I should be sleeping. I just want to understand.
The answer is, we spoke about this before, that on one hand, no two children are the same. Sometimes the expectation from different children has to be different. That one child is built and is a type of child that could excel in Limud HaTorah, that could become a Talmid Chacham, that could be learning full time, or and another child can't necessarily. One child is attracted more to Yiddishkeit, to spiritual things, and one child attracted less. Our mission as parents is to try to understand each child and to give each child the maximum that child can handle in terms of connecting to Hashem. There's a pasuk, Chanoich lanar al pi darkoi, educate a child on his path, on his level. And all of us, every family has its challenges. Every family has a father and a mother. Obviously, one of the most important factors that can help in the success of the children is shalom bayis. When both parents are on the same page, when both parents agree to the type of education that they want the kids to have, and to the type of connection to Hashem, that gives the children a major advantage. And chas v'shalom, when there isn't that shalom, they're at a disadvantage. It makes things much more difficult, number one. However, on the other hand, each one of us needs to know that Hashem has put me in this situation, in this position, and my job is to deal with my situation to the best of my ability. Now, we said here there's a number of factors. There's the tzaddik factor, where to be able to teach out, there are certain things that a parent cannot give a child, because we're not tzaddikim and we're not the tzaddik. And this is where children need to be taught the concept of tzaddik, that in addition to learning from parents, to search for people who are more learned and closer to Hashem than the parent, and to be able to receive what they're supposed to get from them, and to encourage that. There are some parents that are very possessive. They hear that their kid is going to see someone else. They don't want that. I don't want my kid, I want to be the one to teach. That kind of thing. And it's extremely important to know that this is something I want to encourage. I want to encourage the kids to search for tzaddikim, to search for a rabbi that can give them even more than I can give them. And then there's the quality time between the parents and children. And then number 3, even in those circumstances where a parent is not available, today we have tools, we have books, we have audio, we have video that teaching kids to be able to receive a connection to Hashem. There are incredible tools available that we never had before, to try to make sure to make those tools available to the kids. And another major factor is for kids to see that Yiddishkeit is joy, it's happiness. When parents express a difficulty, when they say it's hard to be a Jew, it's hard to be religious, it's hard to do, when they complain in any way or imply that being religious is not joy and happiness, kids hear that, kids feel that, and that weakens them. That weakens their ability, their motivation to want to be religious. Whereas kids see that a parent's greatest joy is going to shul on Friday night or any time, and doing a mitzvah, or when kids see that parents have a tremendous joy when a poor man comes to the door and asks for something, and wow, I'm so happy you came. You're giving me an opportunity. The poor person is embarrassed, and instead of making the person feel like dirt, to make wow, you just made my day. I was wondering if I'm going to have a chance to give tzedakah today, and Baruch Hashem, it came to the door. Hashem sent me a gift, mamish to my doorstep, an opportunity to do tzedakah. That teaches kids the importance of giving. That one of the plagues today is this entitlement issue, that kids aren't taught giving, and they're only taught to take and receive, and they're crippled as a result of that. These are some examples of things that we could do to try to give them the best opportunity to come close to Hashem. Any other questions? We'll hold it over here for now. Mitzvah Hashem, I hope this shir will continue next week on Sunday, Mitzvah Hashem, and the Likutei Halacha shir we hope to have tomorrow morning, Israeli time 8 a.m., American time 1 a.m., and in Baruch Hashem the shirim are being recorded. They'll be edited, put up on the website of Mitzvah Hashem as soon as we can. Wishing everybody a good week. We spoke about bringing children into the world. We have, I want to mention this, we're dedicating today's shir. There's a simcha in the neighborhood here coming up. The girl by the name of? Dina Bas Chava, and the chassan whose name is?
Nasan ben Yehudis.
Nasan ben Yehudis. Hashem should help that the learning that we're doing should be a zchus, that everything, all the arrangements for the wedding and everything should go keshura, and they should build a bayis Maimon b'Yisrael with simcha. I hope to attend that wedding here on Tuesday night, Mitzvah Hashem, and all the other children that need to get married, that want to get married, should be zecher to find the right one, and it should be clear to us why they had to wait. Sometimes it's more clear, sometimes less clear, that we get to see mamish that it was worth waiting for, and that Hashem knew when it was the exact one, the right time. Should be zecher to celebrations in Klal Yisrael, weddings and children being born, which is one of the most important factors that will bring the Gula Shleimah and Her B'Yameinu, Amen V'Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for your message.